Notre Dame is number one.
Notre Dame with a miracle win as a
He's going in. Notre Dame has scored.
Afternoon is a recap. Saturday, senior day for 29 seniors. We were, so happy to send them out with an undefeated home regular season schedule. That was a goal, a tangible goal that we had this year, and really, played offensively the way we were hoping. We talked about getting better in November as an offense and gradually making progress. I think we're getting to that end. And anytime you shut out an opponent, it's a great day for our defense. So we congratulated our team and then got right to work on USC. A very talented football team. Certainly the receiving corps is as good as we'll see. It's the best in the country, in our opinion. Got a very good tandem at running back, and certainly, Gamble at tight end gives them a ball catcher and possession receiver. So it's what you thought. It's the USC offense with great weapons, great balance, and will be a great challenge. Certainly, you never want to see a great player like Matt get injured in a game, but certainly, he's going to have a great career ahead of him. So there'll be a lot of good things happening for him. We don't know a lot about Max. Certainly saw him at the end of some games, but he's on scholarship at USC. And when you get a scholarship to USC, you're one of the best quarterbacks in the country. He's big, strong, physical kid. He's got a live arm, and will certainly fit into their offensive scheme of things. He's a perfect fit for what they do. On the defensive side of the ball, again, you're talking about when you first put the film on, great speed on defense. Long on the defensive line, pass rushers, guys that can get after the quarterback, and a secondary that will want to get hands on you in the sense that they're going to play tight coverage. They're going to match you. Last year they gave us all kinds of problems. Michael Floyd, was a guy that we tried to get the ball to, had some problems getting it to him because they're just very good on the back end of the defense. Dynamic special teams guys. Obviously, when you've got Lee back there, you've got a guy that can do a lot of things in Woods. So just a very, very talented football team that, again, playing in a rivalry game. So they'll play their very best against us. With that, I'll open up to questions.
Brian, this is obviously, not only your last game of the regular season, but Manti's last game before.
But it's not my last game because I'm getting to go recruit on the West Coast. And generally when you get to go on the West Coast recruiting, they're not calling you back.
Right.
That's a good sign.
Absolutely.
Because when they don't let you recruit on the West Coast, that's not a good sign.
Good luck.
Thank you.
All right. As far as Manti, it's his last game before the Heisman Trophy is announced here in a few weeks. So what would be, I know you think that he should win. What would be your last pitch for Manti for the Heisman? My
last pitch would be, win all your games. You're a defensive player, dominate from a defensive standpoint, win all your games, be the #1 team in the country. It has to be those kinds of circumstances to get the attention shifted from the offensive player to a defensive player. And we've said that from day one. It will have to be that kind of season. So we'll have to beat USC.
And you've always talked about wanting to play better in November than at the start of the season. Considering, how considerably the bar was raised this year, how has that challenge maybe been a little different than the last couple of years?
Well, we go to work on it in January relative to playing better in November because it's not just the execution. We know that's a big part of it, how you execute on Saturday, but it's your strength, it's health, it's taking care of yourself. All those things have to come together as well to play well in November. as it relates to our offense, I think it's just a matter of maturing as a group, coming together, especially with a freshman quarterback and some young wide receivers. But as a whole, as a program, playing in November, the seeds of that are in January and February.
Coach, in terms of Everett, you mentioned a couple weeks ago that he was getting to the point where he was going to be able to play through his struggles. Is he at that point right now?
Well, I think so. I think the interception he threw, because we were at a point where it was pretty clear that Wake Forest was having difficulty stopping us, and for us to give the ball up, those are the foolish and careless mistakes that he made early in the year. But he's so much further along that those are ones that he comes to the sideline and says something before you say something to him, and he's on that right trend in terms of understanding.
How does the experience he had at Oklahoma and Michigan State, how does that help him with the pressure going into USC?
All of it. The 9 games that he started, winning on the road, having to come in and lead our football team to a win against Pittsburgh. All of those things go into Saturday, and all of those will be positives for him going into the USC game.
Just kind of changing subjects here. Just big picture, at the start of the season, USC is #1. They have a Heisman candidate. Now that script's kind of flipped. You guys are #1. You have the Heisman candidate. What does that just speak to preseason predictions and just anything like that?
That's why they play the games. It's a long season. It's college football. It's 18 to 21-year-olds. There's so many factors that go into this, and that's why as coaches, and we get asked all the time, hey, did you expect to win 11 or 12? We know the unexpected is always out there. So we try to stay focused on the next practice, because if we did what you did and did that big picture stuff, it would drive us crazy too.
Brian, right here.
Mark position to catch the football and get big chunk plays. So 1, his athletic ability and his skill set after the catch, and 2, they've done a great job of putting him in a position to make those big plays.
Kind of going back to Max Whittick playing quarterback, how much do you fight temptation to do things differently because it's a new guy back there? How much do you guys just stick with what you usually do defensively and what's gotten you here?
Yeah, we're going to do what we do. Absolutely. I mean, at this point, for us to go into one game and say, all right, we're gonna do different things, to confuse Max, it's really crazy. I mean, this guy's watched football all year. He knows he's going to be watching film. He knows our defense. So we're going to do what we do because that's gotten us to this point. So no big changes on our end.
Brian, just to get back to Whittick a little bit, I mean, he was a guy that you were involved with a little bit in recruiting. What do you remember about him? What did you like about him?
Great kid, comes from a great program, has the pedigree, just one of those guys that, when you draw up the prototypical quarterback, 6'4", strong arm, has escapability, student of the game, great character kid.
I'm just curious with Sierra, you've mentioned a couple times about him adapting to this system with Harry and Chuck and what you guys like to do. Where do you think he's improved the most during the season in terms of adapting to what you want?
Route running, ball catching. Those are 2 huge areas where he has elevated his game. Practice. He practices with a purpose every day now. He is locked in, and then he's getting more north and south in his running. And the inside-outside zone scheme is set to run north and south. We don't want a lot of cutting. We ran that option play on Saturday, and he was looking to cut off of somebody. You know what I mean? It's just he was resisting the temptation, and when he runs north and south, we all know what he's capable of. So those 3 areas, he's really made great improvement.
The north-south stuff, are some running backs just hardwired to be more east-west? Did you have to reprogram him to a certain extent?
In some instances, you have to, because they want to make you miss, where it is so much more difficult to make a head-on tackle. It's easier to run with speed and make an angle tackle. When you're running north and south, we have run through so many tackles this year when we get north and south, and so that's been a point of emphasis going into the fall.
Just the whole number one thing, and you talked about it on Sunday, but there are a lot of teams who, once they get up to number one and they haven't been there for a long time, the pressure gets to them, or you see them get knocked off. Crazy stuff happens. Kansas State, Oregon, for just a couple examples. Why do you think that is overall? I mean, you know other coaches, Chip Kelly, Bill Snyder's been around forever. Why do you think some teams just fall into that trap of either enjoying number one or getting distracted or feeling pressure from it?
I can only give you my opinion because I don't know what it's like at Oregon or the other schools. But we wear that and feel that every game we play. So number one for us is USC is going to play their very best because they're playing number one. I don't think kids change when they're number one. They go to work the same way. They practice the same way. The other teams are going to play their very best. But we get that every week anyway. We get the absolute best from our opponents each and every week. And so for us, it's business as usual. They're going to play outstanding football. You better be ready for USC's best.
Brian, to your left, I don't know that I've heard, certainly not you, but certainly also none of your players comment about the Notre Dame and irrelevant comment that everybody likes to throw out there. I haven't heard, any of your players talk about no respect at any point this year. Is that coincidence, or is that something you coach them not to dwell on or even comment on at any point?
No, I don't coach them about, what they say and how they say it as much as, they understand the basic tenets of being part of a championship program. And that is, first of all, speak for yourself. You know what I mean? Don't comment on things that you don't know about. And they see that every day on a sign that we have in our building. About big picture stuff never takes place.
You commented last week about, getting players to come here to Notre Dame to get their degree first. You want them to have an NFL career, but that's not the first priority. How do you strike that balance? I mean, it must start in the recruiting process with the kind of guys that you recruit. If you sense that somebody's priorities are more on the NFL than they are Notre Dame, do you walk away from that?
Well, because Tim, we clearly talk about our distinctions and why you would come to Notre Dame. So those guys that are not attracted to Notre Dame, we've already laid out to them what they're going to get when they come here and why they should consider Notre Dame. And people would say, well, why would you do that? Well, we would be recruiting them under false pretenses because they wouldn't fit in the program if they came here and didn't care about their academics, didn't care about being in the dorms, didn't care about being at Notre Dame, and thought just about going to the NFL. They wouldn't fit in very well. So we go through that in the recruiting process. So if John Smith's not interested in Notre Dame, we can move on because we've clearly told them and we're transparent about what our philosophy is in the recruiting process.
Sheldon Day, I think he probably got more snaps against Wake Forest than he did at any other game. Do you know how many he had?
Yeah, he had somewhere in the 30 range, which is a high number for him.
He immediately gets inside position on the cornerback as he did.
Yeah.
Can you expect the quarterback to break off of the fade and throw to the back shoulder, or have Eifert break in on the ball? Can you expect that out of the quarterback?
Yes.
Did on Saturday.
Yes. Yeah, I don't want to get into some specifics there. We can talk about that, in clinic time. But there's some games left and some things that we do that, we expect the ball to be in a position away from the defender.
I'll be free in the spring so I can attend the clinic.
Good. Yeah, that's what I hear.
Right here, Coach. During the preseason, Manti talked about, before last year's USC game, if there's one he could have back as far as how he was before the game, he felt like he was trying to manufacture enthusiasm, and maybe it came across as a little false. Was that kind of one of the great learning moments kind of in your time here as far as how to approach on a week-by-week basis, the consistency that you're talking about?
Yes. Yeah, that game in particular was certainly one where it required all of our players to really examine how they're going to be consistent winners. And I think they have obviously done an incredible job since that game. I don't know how many games we've lost since then, but it's not many. So, yeah, it was about that game.
There's so much attention on the receiving combination there that USC ran the ball very well last year here too. First possession, it was just all pretty much run. And now Curtis McNeil, who had 119 yards, he's the backup. So there's some depth there. So stopping the run still has to be the foremost.
Stopping the run is what we're built on. Stopping the run and running the football and taking care of it is really what we're built on. So, yeah, and answering your question, it's the same philosophy going into Saturday.
You had talked about running through tackles. Do you keep a stat, like when you watch the film, yards after contact by the running backs?
We do. I mean, we think it's an important number for our guys to be aware of.
How has that, graded out and improved since last year?
Well, I think it's been a point of emphasis going into this fall based upon what we did last year. We wanted to make sure that, we got our guys downhill. And again, consequently, we've been in more direct snap. So we've made, it's harder to run downhill when you're in shotgun. Certainly you're put in a position to get the ball east and west. You're not getting it north and south like you are in direct. So inherently, you have to do some things, and we've made some tweaks in terms of how the back attacks the ball in shotgun, how he gets it downhill, how he gets to north and south, and so that's been more of a point of emphasis than any one particular scheme.
And just with Everett, he had been so effective with just the speed option. The pitch was that he made to Sierra, timing-wise and everything on the 68-yard touchdown. Was that kind of the next evolution?
He can do it behind his back, and I'm not kidding. He was a point guard in high school, could distribute the ball, great passer of the basketball, and the ball comes out effortlessly and without much thought.
You saw that in the preseason too, as far as the pitch, or did you work?
We just weren't ready to put him in a running situation. He still needs another coat of armor on him. He needs another year in the weight room and needs to get thicker. We want to be judicious and I think it starts with you have to have a football IQ to play the position as a freshman. You have to know the game. You have to have some skill set there that allows you to play the game while you're learning. Every one of those freshman quarterbacks you talked about, if you go talk to their quarterback coach or head coach, they would tell you they're still learning. But they have some unique skill set, whether it's a high IQ, whether it's a great arm, whether it's just an intuitiveness in the way they can play the game. They've got to have something there. So I don't think it's just being a freshman. I think they've got all the guys that you mentioned, unique skill sets, and they have to have a really solid IQ about the game of football for them to be successful as freshmen.
So they have an innate crutch they can lean on while they're learning, basically.
That's correct.
Okay. And then I want to ask you, too, about third downs. You guys have been pretty successful this year, and it seems to be increasingly improving. Is that something that falls on your quarterback's shoulders as well with his improvement?
Look, when you drop back and you're protected now, that's a big difference. When you drop back and you don't know where it's coming from, hard to set your feet, hard to get your eyes on your progression, hard to do all those things. But when
if things had fallen different, you would have been facing Manti this game rather than having him on your team. And just wondered, without giving away trade secrets, what it would be like as a coach game planning for that.
That's the first time I've ever changed my brain over to think about it in those terms. Not very comforting. He's got such a great nose. I know he's a pain in the butt when we go against him in the spring. He just, you can't do certain things with him. He's kind of eliminating certain plays already just because of his instincts. And you're going against a great competitor. That'd be difficult to plan against him.
I would think, again, your focus is so much on winning that you don't even think of the Heisman stuff sometimes, but you've resisted making him a gimmick, running the ball with him or having him kick an extra point and stuff. Did that ever cross your mind or not?
It never crossed my mind, but we have a lot of people that have opinions on that. I will tell you that. And that won't happen. He's going to play linebacker, and that's it. And if he can't win the Heisman at linebacker, then he can't win the Heisman.
When you say a lot of people, like people in position to influence you, or just like Lewis Nix?
Never underestimate the power of Lewis Nix. He could probably influence me on that more so than maybe anybody else. But no, I would say that that was out there, and certainly it was played up a little bit with some players in our program that wanted to volunteer at that position for Manti after hearing the rumors of it. But there was at no time did I even give it. How am I going to I put that guy at running back and he gets hurt? I won't get to come. I'll be coming back for that recruiting trip. I won't get the chance to stay on the West Coast.
You mentioned Sunday that a lot of people don't have your number and so forth as far as calling you and so forth. But early in your time here, you talked to Era and Lou a lot. I wondered if you've had a chance to visit with them at all.
I have. I get my weekly card from Era. Each week, he handwrites a note to me. And, the great thing is he's so unassuming. He's done this and been there. But he'll write a note like he doesn't want to assume anything. You know what I mean? Like, hey, he's never given any advice, just talking as a Notre Dame fan and alum, and it's just it's great to just get that communication with him. And as it relates to Lou, I talked to him about some specific things that I would like his opinion on. Era is much more of a fan, supportive. I invite him up every home game to my box, and he politely declines because he thinks he's got the best seat in front of his television. So, and that's our conversation. And then with Lou, it's more about some specific things.
And how valuable of a resource has Lou been for you?
Extremely valuable, extremely. Just, he knows Notre Dame, and Era does as well, and those are great assets. And but a number of coaches. Charlie Weiss knows Notre Dame, and I got a wonderful note from Charlie last week. It was heartfelt and talked about the seniors and wishing them the best, and it was really a terrific note from Charlie. It was very classy. So we get a lot of that communication with the former Notre Dame coaches, and it's really nice.
Last thing from me. Fourth downs last year, I think you had the fewest attempts in the country in terms of tries. I think unless Florida State gets a little ambitious, you have a shot at that again, fewest tries on fourth down. Is that a function of your kicker? Is that a function of field position? Or is it philosophy that you just feel like, I've got to do something else but go for it on fourth?
Yeah. Time and place in the game is important, and field position. And finally, the way that I've wanted to construct the games, in particular this year, was, and I think the numbers bear it out. You put an offense on a long field against our defense, your percentage of scoring is so small. So it's all about how we wanted to play the game this year.
Coach, to your left. Yeah. Switching gears a little bit, as far as recruiting goes, what kind of boost does the facilities here, the Droog and the Bar, give you?
I think it puts us on plane with everybody else. If you walk around the top 30 or 40 schools in the country, they've invested in their facilities. So we've got wonderful facilities here. Kids don't make their decisions anymore based upon the facilities. They're looking at much more because there's so many programs that have outstanding facilities now. So it's more than brick and mortar as it relates to recruiting now.
And then with the USC receivers coming into the season, Woods got a lot of attention. Did you really expect Lee to come in and really outshine him this year?
Well, no, I didn't know. We thought he was a terrific player. There's no question about it. There's only one football. So it just seems that he's gotten more of the catches, whether it's by design or not. Either one of those guys can beat you by themselves. The numbers just have gone his way this year, but, you're talking about two of the best in the country, and I don't know that you can really choose. They're both terrific players.
Thank you.
Brian, to your right. More on Manti. The pitch, if you're making a pitch for him, would it be more of what he does off the field? Do you think that maybe separates him from everybody else? And if so, what does he do that people don't see?
I don't know what the other candidates for the Heisman do off the field. I'm sure they're wonderful kids as well. I can only say that you know, as it relates to Manti, he represents all the things that a Notre Dame student and athlete would want to have: integrity, academic commitment, leadership, you know, spiritual development, all of those things. So as he relates to Notre Dame, I can tell you where he fits among the other candidates is that he has all of those traits that the Heisman Trophy embodies. So my pitch has always been about Manti and what he represents and embodies, and he's one really, really good football player, and he just happens to be on defense.
And switching up a little bit, do you talk about the rivalry at all? You know, or in what ways do you talk about it?
Well, it's not a great rivalry right now. We haven't won enough games. I think a rivalry is when, you know, they've had the upper hand on this. We need to make this a rivalry, and that is we need to win some more football games against a great opponent in USC. So our guys know that. I don't have to tell them that. They've been around. They were here last year when we got beat. So we want to make this a rivalry. Remind them about the obvious. I really try to talk to them about what the next step is for us. And now that they know that Grace Hall said that you're number one, we can move on. And we went to work on what we normally do, and that is watch the film against Wake Forest and begin our scouting report. And then today is Intense Tuesday. That's all they know, because that's all we tell them. And they are locked in that way about what's the next thing for us. And they know today is you know, Intense Tuesday.
I guess more what I meant was, did their demeanor seem any different? I mean, it should be exciting, you know?
No, they came into work and, I'm sure, listen, it's a lot better when that light's on than when it's not on. You know, I'm sure it's better going to class. I'm sure it's better in the dorms. I'm sure it's just a better feeling, a more positive approach to everything, and that's unquestionable. But as it relates to, does it affect the way they come to work every day? No, it does not.
Brian, to your right, just a quick follow-up on the rivalry. You mentioned how it's not a great rivalry. You haven't won enough.
Well, to me, a rivalry it's got to go both ways. Sure. It hasn't gone both ways. You know, we've got one win out of 10. That, to me, is we're getting our butt kicked here. We need to win some games.
And that was kind of my question. How important, at the time when you won, it was important to Notre Dame fans because you broke a long streak, and I think Notre Dame fans loved that win at USC. Is it something that is important to the team now? They've won there. Like the last time they were there, a lot of these guys are involved in that game. Does it carry over at all?
I don't know if it does or not. I know that they don't. History for them doesn't influence how they play. What they did last week won't help them against USC. It's what they do on Saturday. That's, you know, we talked about the USC game last year and how that was a pivotal defining point of it doesn't matter what you've done in the past. It didn't matter that you beat them last year. You got to play on Saturday. So our guys really understand that this is all about how they perform on Saturdays more so than what happened in the past.